We are live. This is Ichabod. It's Tuesday night, so this is Exit Strategy. So welcome to all those who are coming in. And I know that you're right now missing the organs. We are minus organs and we're minus Jay Witt, but we are plus one tonight. So we we might have lost one, but we just won one. And you can see on your screen
Absolutely.
there. We got a guest preacher in tonight. So come on in.
Hallelujah.
Find your seat. I know we don't have the organs, but greet somebody in reason's name. Tell them that you
Absolutely.
love them in reason's name. And welcome our brother,
Thank you.
Derek
Thank you.
Lambert. Derek Lambert to the show.
Thank you so much, man. Good to be on it. I'm over here multitasking for those who are
Yep.
interested. But we're going to share this thing out there and have a little fun, hang out with my bro here and talk about exit strategy. And like,
Hey.
I feel like I'm in a meeting where I'm like, here's my experience, strength, and hope, and to give you what worked for me and stuff. So thank you, man.
Yep. Great to have you. So come on in. Everybody, if you're not new, then you know how this goes. We're gonna beat around the bush just for a minute to give people a chance to come in and uh and then we'll get started. So get in the chat, shake a hand, hug a neck, virtually, of course, and we'll find each other in a second. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to find this so I could share it out.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Usually you do have music at
yeah,
the beginning.
usually Jay Witt's got the organs going. He's giving them the
Exactly.
old Baptist greetings.
There we go.
All
Almost
right.
there.
Uh, let me see if I go here. Will I be able to see it? I'm trying to find it on my YouTube right now just so I can share it out.
That's it. I'm on Facebook. I'm adding it there. Just sharing it out there to the community, hoping we can get some people to join us and go from there.
Yes. All right, I see it here. We got 16 in the chat, or 16 watching at least.
Good, good. More will trickle in.
Hmm.
Let's hope they get here before the end.
Before the end of time.
Yeah, we know what happens then if they don't make it. So
All right.
there we go.
Uh,
I shared it out. I closed my app so you won't hear any dinging. And yeah,
if you're here now, make sure you hit that like button and don't be afraid to testify, to share it out.
hey, all right, we got some friends there. Hey there.
Yes. Stacy's Mom podcast in the house. Aunt Kathy in the house. Baron, hi.
Yeah,
My man Fro Wonders is in the house. Michael Apple is in the house.
in the hizzy.
All right. So for those who are coming in, let's just do this real quick in the chat. I was thinking about things that you're free to do now that you are uh, an unbeliever, whether you're atheist, agnostic, whether you're whatever, things that you're free to do, and then things that you're free from. I want to
Hmm.
just help some people who are coming in. If they're reading the chat, just throw in the chat some things that you are free from, but then also things that you are free to. Throw some of that in the chat just so somebody can get an idea of what it is that these deconverted folks, what are you guys about? What are you doing with your lives? Um, what are you free from? What are you free to?
Hmm. Now, there's some people who will think that the reason you decon you deconvert or you left is due to behaviors that you want to get
Mm.
away with so you could sin. And they think that that's like the primary reason behind people who deconvert.
Mm.
And I'm sure that that's played a role in some people's minds,
Hmm.
especially with ideas of hell, for example, and such.
Yep.
but I guarantee you there's a lot more on when it comes to me and you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's several factors. That's a benefit of it. But there was
Hmm.
other more educational approaches, I think, that start to make you realize what I thought was
Hmm.
not the case. And
Yeah,
so, yeah.
yeah. Uh, Somebody said, free from hell nightmares, paying homage. I hear you. Kathy says, free to think and
Mm,
free from fear. Yes. Testify, testify, saints. Free to point out the moral failures of the Bible and any other textual presentation. Remember having to justify that crap.
yeah. Yeah, my video today was about like dealing with Yahweh's violence.
Mm,
And there's a section, it's all based on Joshua Bowen's work. This video, his
yeah.
chapter on Yahweh's uh violence. And in the middle, we get into a section where we actually go into a 13th century BCE Assyrian uh writing where Asser, the god Asser,
Mm,
is like telling them to expand the kingdom and to conquer these surrounding nations and destroy them, or make peace treaty where they're vassal states and they're actually under you. So subdue them regardless, they have to be subordinate. Your
mm,
God commands it. And then it describes these other nations who broke their treaty or tried to rebel to fight against being conquered.
mm,
And in that act, Asser's displeased and wants them wiped out. And so the way that they wrote the propaganda about these other peoples is their hearts were wicked.
mm. Wow.
Yeah, like similar to what you find the Bible's description of Amalekites or
Wow.
Canaanites or Ishmael or whatever the various ites
Yeah,
all
yeah,
throughout
yeah.
Canaan. And it's like, whoa. And experts in Assyriology, the
Mm,
Assyriologists who look this up, never believe at
mm.
face value what's being said. They always know that it's propagandistic. And
Propaganda. Yes.
so when you're reading your Bible,
Mm,
what made us, of
mm.
course, indoctrination plays a
Yeah.
huge role, but what made us start with thinking the Bible's author's correct? These wicked, terrible, horrific Canaanites, they're
Mm,
so
mm,
evil, they
mm,
deserve us to go and crush and destroy every man, woman, and child. The
mm.
ban. And so you can see how they'd quickly be able to just hand wave off the Assyrian stuff.
Yeah.
But the Bible,
Yeah.
oh, that's your special place. So
Yeah.
if you were to ask a Muslim, though,
Mm.
they'd be quick to critique the Bible, but
Right.
talk about the Quran. A Christian will be quick
Yeah.
to the Quran.
The bias shows automatically. You're going to be favorable to the documents that you like, the storylines that you like. You're going to be very
Exactly.
suspect, quick to second guess and quick to, dig up the dirt and expose the flaws of the things that run afoul of your worldview.
Right.
Yeah.
It's tough stuff.
Yeah. Uh,
Please hit the like button, everybody, by the way. So
Free to text my Christian family members and tell them I gave my life back to God for a good laugh. Well, what's funny is just before we came online,
oh, tell
I should
them.
share it. I should share my
You
screen.
should share your screen. You should show
I
everybody.
gotta go to Facebook. Hold on.
All right, all right, all right.
Uh yeah, that's a great one. You're free to you're free to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been advertising that I was going to have Derek on, looking forward to it, and he almost got me. I just hadn't checked it, but let me see. Is it coming up there?
He messaged me the link to the Zoom and was like, "Hey, we're live in 1 hour." And then
Yeah.
I wrote him I wrote him back. I had to call you to tell you to look at it. That's how sucky.
All right, so hold on, I'm going to share it now. How do I boom? Okay. Share. Yeah, sorry for the lag here. Share screen. Which screen? This screen. All right, tell me when you guys see it.
Let me look at the there it is.
Yeah. So just before, about a half hour before we go live, uh, Derek texts me, I've converted back to Christianity today and won't be able to betray my God by joining you. So, and I didn't even see, I just texted him the link and I signed off. So he sent me that, and I'm just like, ah, la, 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 la.
I actually didn't post ha 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 yet.
Right.
I was hoping you'd see it and be like, what? Or laugh
Yo,
at least or something.
I don't know what I would had I not had you not text me on the side and say, hey, check out what I wrote.
You
If
wouldn't
I
have.
came back and just saw, hey, I've converted back, I don't know if I would have taken it as a joke. I would have been like, how is
Really?
this? I mean, I would think I would have had to take it as a joke,
Right.
but I'm like, part of me would have been thinking, like, how in the world is this possible? Like,
Oh, well, Jesus
so
came and visited me and finally overcame my doubts. I mean,
finally, right?
finally.
Yeah. Um, it's wild. I keep referring to the God of the Bible as Bible God. Sometimes I call him Book God or God of a thousand commentaries. Um, it's so strange to me that people think that we should be rushing to come back to a faith when the most that this God has done to re-win any of us who've had these intellectual reasons for leaving the faith.
Mhm.
The most he's done is have Gary Habermas write a 9,000 page book. Like that's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to win me back with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think, right, with this kind of sincere interest in journeying to what we believe is true and trying to be honest with ourselves as much as we can and treating it equally as any other literature, right? Like if this were true, if this literature really was the revelation in
Hmm.
any way, not trying to argue for absolute infallibility and all that, just any form of actual divine revelation in any way, you would think
Mm.
that God himself or some type of majestic overcoming that doubt would occur, especially when it gives you the narrative saying Thomas, he did this for Thomas, he does this, he overcomes their doubts. And
Yeah.
it's that sad realization that I
Mm.
read recently when I was talking about the book of Acts in one of my videos. And I said, look at this. And I was reading from a Christian website
Hmm.
and it lists all this. I mean, all the miracles that happen in the book of Acts. I mean, the prisons, the earth shakes, the angels come down, they die and stoned
Mm.
to death, and he's
Yeah.
resurrected from the
Yeah.
dead, and he heals the withered hand and the
Mm.
handkerchief and I mean, dude, like it's like this like long list of miracles and
Mm.
divine revelations and things like that. And then the Christian website said, now, my brothers and sisters, you know, Lord did that for them. Don't get high expectations, like already setting them up for
Right.
like,
Right.
don't
Let
think
me
this is going to
explain why you
happen.
shouldn't expect this. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was like, why? Why shouldn't we expect that? And if God really does exist, and this is true,
Mm.
there should be on the son or the child of that God expectations that you will reveal, not through some vague, I had a dream or
Yeah.
some emotional experience through worship, actual miraculous deeds that look similar to what this material paints the portrait of this
Yeah.
God behaving like.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad this God doesn't exist, though, because
Mm.
much of the portrait that it portrays is vividly bad in many cases.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking some horrific stuff. The way it's being described, this deity is being described, and the kind of relationship this God has with his people, Israel. Whoa, what an
Yeah.
abusive type of relationship.
Yep.
So
Yep.
anyway, yeah.
Yeah. It dawned on me at some point in my deconversion. It dawned on me just how easy it is to write about miracles. Um, and it's so funny because you have Jesus doing miracles, and then there's the famous story where I think it's Luke, where he's Luke 2, is it? I'm not sure. Where he's healing people, and then he says, Your sins are forgiven. And they get like mad, like, who are you to forgive sins? And Jesus
Mhm.
says, wait, which is easier to heal, to say, take up your bed and walk, or to say your sins are forgiven? The implication is, if I was a fraud, I just say the thing that's easy to say without being
Mhm.
able to do the hard things, such as heal somebody.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not a fraud because I'm doing the hard thing. I'm healing, and not
Mhm.
just doing the weak, or the easy thing. I could lie and say I'm forgiving sins when I'm really not. Well, the
Right.
reverse of that is happening now. Now, all the things that are very easy to do, just say, you're doing, it's written in a book so that you might believe. But now the hard things you won't do. Like that was the telltale sign for me, is how easy it is to just say he's all powerful. He's already showed it. He
Right.
showed it in the past. If you want to see God at work, look back there, as opposed to looking at my life today and being able to see God move. So yeah, I think we're cooking with a little bit of grease here. What I'd like to do is, uh, once again, for those who are here, welcome Derek Lambert to Exit Strategy. Um, Derek, I know you got fans all over the world. When I was, going through my deconversion, deconstruction, I had to work everything out for myself to know what I believe.
Right.
And as soon as I was done with that, I looked up to see, am I alone? And I started finding people like yourself and others. And I'm so glad that I found people like you. Um, the world, I said this to you privately, I say it to you publicly, the world is better for having you.
Oh
Um,
man.
the things that you do, that you spend your time doing, you've made a life out of getting all of this rich scholarship
Yeah.
and then bringing it to the public for people who don't have the money or the time, didn't even know they had the interest to go study, to go get a degree. Now
Right.
they're getting that same information by logging in, subscribing, and checking you out. Can you just give us a heads up on what's new with you?
Mhm.
What are you up to? What can people look forward to from Myth Vision and from Derek?
I'll try and make it brief because, I know our time is limited. I have a documentary coming soon on Melchizedek, dealing with that
Mm,
strange character, that
okay.
enigmatic character that shows up and disappears. What the heck is he doing? And why is he in the book of Hebrews? Why is he this priest after the order of Melchizedek forever,
Mm,
etc.? What is that all about? And so it's actually written by a good friend, Paul Davidson. He wrote the
mm,
script, and of course, I read it and then we edit it and we make it a nice documentary. Other than that, I have another documentary that is coming up. This one's going to be a little bit longer, and this one's on demons and exorcist.
mm,
And the whole point of this one, along with my earlier one on miracles, you brought up miracles earlier. It's easy to
mm,
write about miracles. Yes, it is. And there are several gods and heroes. A
mm,
hero in the ancient world is a human who becomes divine. So they're mortals, born mortals, usually by like a god as their parent, Yahweh with Mary having
mm,
Jesus. He was a hero who
mm,
becomes a god.
mm,
And so he is not God in the ultimate monotheistic sense, even in the New Testament. He shares status with this deity, but it's so interesting how monotheism ends up anachronistically painting or the Trinitarian view. So anyway, we're dealing with exorcist around the time written in the literature who exorcise demons out. Example,
mm,
Apollonius of Tyana, and there are several other figures who do things similar to what Jesus does in the Gospels. So those are those. And then, of course, as I told you, we're
mm,
hoping to do something because I think we need more of a sense of vacation and community. What would it be? And I'm hypothesizing in my head, planting the seed, if we had a conference cruise, not like we must go here. I
mm,
plan on doing something where we go to some of these sites over in Israel, Palestine, and see some of the locations, the Dead Sea, the whole nine. Maybe next year when everything's calm and the war is over. But in the meantime, I'm wondering why not kick our shoes off, get a little sun,
mm.
let a few people enjoy a drink or two,
Yeah.
go to the conference and listen to an expert academic on a cruise ship,
Mm, mm, mm.
socialize, hang out, go to the dance at night, enjoy the club a little bit, whatever, be a heathen that we are, you know what I'm saying? We love to sin, don't we? No,
Mm,
but seriously, how many Christians go to the club? Anyway,
mm.
um, but yeah, enjoy yourself. So I'm throwing
Okay.
out some ideas as potential kind of conference myth vision get-togethers. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Good
Yep.
stuff. I want to ask you something. I didn't plan on this, but there was a period where you were going back and forth with a few apologists, and you were making a claim, not a claim, you were making an argument that I thought was a great argument, and they were going back and forth with them. Um, but you were kind of trying to hold their feet to the fire of, if it sounds like a duck, if it
Right.
walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And what I like about what Myth Vision does is it puts people back in the world of when it wasn't just a Jesus who had an apotheosis. It wasn't just a Jesus who had a mother who was visited by a God. It wasn't, you're putting people back in the world where these thoughts were common.
Right.
And it sort of forces people to have to ask, man, if it wasn't just a Jesus that I was hearing about, if I was hearing about all these other demigods and with all these, would I have taken this so serious? Would I have taken it as such a holy thing?
Mm.
Um, I'm curious from your vantage point, what was the end of, or maybe it's still ongoing, or just has it just fizzled out? But when you were going back and forth with the apologists, you guys
Right.
even jumped on and did a video together. We're saying
Yep.
if it talks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. If Jesus is if he's got all the lore of this Greco-Roman mythology, why isn't it the same thing? Was there ever any kind of like where did that conversation land? Do you feel like,
Mhm.
you know, at least on that argument, you got the apologists to budge a little bit, or like what was the end of all that?
The only budging I think, if I'm still manning their position,
Mm,
is that they were willing to say, okay, I get it. It looks fictional.
mm,
It has fictional elements. He's in the genre, in the motif, in the topos, as they would call it, in a long-standing tradition of what looks to be mythological, legendary material. But they would C.S. Lewis their way out of it and say, this is the true myth. And the
mm,
analogy I would give, because you read
mm,
Plutarch, you read these ancient elite authors, they're educated like the highest echelon of education in the known world, the Greek and Roman world. And they categorize, they
mm,
give you, as historians, they say, this right here is a tale that the locals think it's a legend, it's a fable, it's not. They're saying don't believe it. It's
mm.
they're making this up,
Yeah, yeah.
and sometimes they would themselves write fiction in the
Hmm.
form of what they'd call legends. They would call them mythos. They would call them fables, depending on the author. And what they're describing is that there's a lot of embellishment in fanciful
Hmm.
writings. A lot of that stuff I discovered over time Jesus fits in the category of. I'm
Hmm.
not trying to zeitgeist people.
I
This
got you.
exactly means he's Horus. Exactly. Like, no, 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 no. Let's not
Mm,
play games. There is a general cultural, historical trope that is
hmm.
well established on birth narratives, for example. I brought this down yesterday or day before yesterday when I went on an apologist channel, Suetonius, Lives of the Caesars. And in the passage that I always bring this up, but Caesar Augustus' birth, it talks about portents, prophecies leading up to his birth. The Senate is scared out of their mind that this guy is going to be born that's going to rule the world.
Mm,
And they say the year this supposed chosen one was supposed to be born, do not rear up children this year. Women are not allowed to have babies. Who's that sound like?
mm,
Herod the Great.
mm,
Now, Christians might jump. Notice how I like to try and see examples that parallel or seem
hmm.
similar. Christians that I've bumped into who hear this, when I tell them that classicist academics who study Suetonius and these authors, they say, no, there is no bearing. They are not aware of the Gospels at all. So then, how do they know about this theme? Well, in the literary world, when you learned the languages, they would teach you how to write stories.
Mm,
That means they're not writing actually what happened. They're
right,
doing really good fanciful writing to bolster their guy. One day you'll be gone, and hopefully, Brady, you actually have someone write a story about you. And
right.
yeah, let it be fiction, baby. Let it
Hmm.
be a fiction. Let it be based off of something true. But I
Mm,
don't mind if you make it fanciful,
right.
make it cool, make it fun, make it something that people will remember.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what they did. And they
Mm,
did this with Jesus. Well, when I
mm,
bring this up, it walks like a duck, talks like a duck. It looks legendary. It sounds very legendary. It's similar to what we see with ascension narratives like Romulus or some of the Caesars. It's similar to like other gods performing miracles, water into wine. Dionysus clearly turns milk into wine, and in some accounts, less accounts, but some accounts, and these are before the
mm,
Gospels were written, water into wine. So when you look at these things and you go, okay, they say correlation doesn't mean causation, or it's not necessarily a legend. The analogy I would give is show me the modern historical example of the man who wore the cape, who flew out of the phone booth, and I mean flew,
yeah.
not not like walked out,
Hmm.
okay? Because people put on capes because they're inspired by fiction today. People
Mm,
go to these Comic Cons and stuff all the time. I'm talking about an actual dude in an actual phone booth who actually flies off, who actually walks on water, who actually heals the blind, et cetera, et cetera. I could show you several comic book examples in antiquity
mm,
where Asclepius, however you want to pronounce his name, um, I could show you where Heracles even raises the dead. All of these people, Isis. the mother of Osiris, and this
Mm-hmm.
is in a Greco-Roman context. She raises the dead, heals the blind, the lame, the sick, the cripple. I have several sources
Mm,
in antiquity around this time. Apollonius of Tyana, and the list goes on. Vespasian, the emperor of Rome, Josephus writes about some of this stuff, mentions it, but so
mm,
does Tacitus, Suetonius, other authors mention this healing idea that Vespasian
mm,
healed a blind man with spit
mm.
in the temple. Guess what? Historians don't think that it knows the Gospels. They don't
Mm.
think it's copying the Gospels or that necessarily the Gospels are copying this source.
Common
So then,
tropes.
yeah, like where did the idea of healing a person with spit come from?
Mm.
Seems to be in the air somehow.
Yeah,
Anyway, once you see the fiction,
yeah.
I don't get. I understand unless you need this to have happened, you need it. I
Mm.
don't get why they can't see that analogy as a very strong.
Yeah.
It's not proof. It's a very strong probabilistic case that I'm saying. How do you get to this one without actually saying you're not special pleading and say he actually rose and did walk on water? Oh, and he did turn water into wine. When you see the several birth narratives, several
Yeah.
miraculous accounts, exorcisms, the list goes on with other characters that you don't think had the power to actually do these things, unless you want to say they're
Right.
all really doing these things. But those guys are doing it by the power of Satan. And there's some that seem to want to flirt with that idea. Like they
I
want to make
thought I
fiction
thought in
true.
that back and forth that that's where some of them went. They were
Yep.
willing to say, no, they all have some truth to them.
That's kind of, or at least they won't. The ones that I know that are fundamentalist, they're
Hmm.
willing to go, we believe in the supernatural, so we want to try and be consistent because this argument makes a lot of sense. Therefore, well, they did it by the power of Satan and
Yeah,
demons and
right,
things like that.
right.
So technically, they're willing to go, sure, Asclepius healed the blind. Sure, he rose the dead. Sure, this and sure that, because they don't want.
Yeah.
They want to be right that Jesus is the one. And it's like
Hmm.
these authors, you have to ignore these authors who say these are legendary. And I'm not talking about modern authors.
Right.
Like we have experts today who clearly categorize this stuff in fiction. In some way, shape, or form, it's fictional. But in the ancient
Wow.
world,
Yeah.
they were already saying, the elite educated were like, this is a tell. Even in
So
Herodotus,
the apologists today have to speak over those ancient writers and say, no, no, it wasn't fiction when they did it. It was real, just like it was real when Jesus did it. So they're speaking over the
they're
ancient
speaking
scholars.
exactly. Not
Wow.
only are they speaking over those ancient scholars who categorize this stuff, they're technically taking the position of the people that these elites were kind of mocking in many ways.
Mm.
So, like, oh, there's this town over here, and they believe. I'll give you an example. If we go to Herodotus, let me see if I have my account of Herodotus. It's a big book. Thanks to Gnostic informant Neil, he bought it for me one day and had
Mm.
it shipped to me. Forgive me, man. I think it's a powerful point in Herodotus, somewhere back here on my bookshelf, I think. I'm not gonna. I don't want to
Mm.
waste any airtime. He talks about Zalmoxis. There's this strange character he talks about, and I think the name of the people are Gitai people. The name Gitai.
Mm.
I could be messing up these words without the source in front of me, but Zalmoxis had this cult from a particular region that he was some man who was among them, and like they believed that
Mm.
when they would have this like ceremony where they would throw a man up in the air, and if he landed on a spear and died, then he would go to Zalmoxis. But if he didn't, it was like some weird superstitious, and it was
Mm.
not like almost like you ever watched Vikings? I told you about the show
I
Vikings last
haven't
night.
watched it, but I know about it. Yeah.
If you know anything about that show, you'll see where they sacrifice animals and humans, 9 to be exact. Every 9 years, they sacrifice 9 of each kind of whatever.
Mm.
Uh, okay, for what? To appease the gods' wrath and to have a good joy for the next 9 years and all this. Like it's superstitious. Well, in this Zalmoxis cult, Herodotus defines and describes their position. Scholars don't necessarily take his account on face value to be actually exactly accurate in what it might say. Some do and some don't, depending on the classicist. But he disappears for 3 years
Mm.
underground. This is the account, and this is in Herodotus, 500 years before our New Testament.
Mm.
He goes off into the underground. They believe like he's gone and he comes back. So he
Hmm.
like in a sense resurrects, right?
Right.
Like he's alive again. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Hmm.
we thought he died.
Hmm.
And that he promised, I don't want to put words in the mouth, but he promised that the people who follow will live forever. Like they're going to
Hmm.
have this eternal life. They're going to have everlasting life. And he said that I don't believe this. Herodotus says, I don't believe this superstition. I do think there was a guy, I think he says something like that, but like he critiques while
Hmm.
he's defining what they believe from this
Right.
little area over here of these people called the Gittite. This is what Plutarch does. And what I feel like the apologists are doing is kind of when Celsus is critiquing Christianity, sometimes he gets things accurate. Sometimes I feel like maybe Celsus is over embellished because he's trying to attack, Christianity. He's mocking and scoffing some of the Christian beliefs. And I feel like he's taking this little group of superstitious people
Hmm.
and the apologists are identifying with that little particular group's superstition rather than
Hmm.
equally balanced out just across the board because Plutarch would critique his own myth.
Hmm.
Like that's the thing. He's Greek, right? Roman, coming out of this Greek Roman tradition. He'd be quick to critique Heracles and quick to critique Zeus of his own tradition.
Wow.
So I'm coming
Yeah.
at this wanting a level playing field.
Hmm.
I'm not putting Jesus's material above because we have more accounts of it, simply because the church preserved it more. That, there's just
Yeah.
so many reasons I'm not going to sit there and special plead for this
Hmm.
material anymore.
Yeah. And to be able to call it what it is, I'm waiting for someone, like in all my discussions with people who are still believers, and I ask them that question, how is what you're doing not special pleading? And I never,
Yeah.
trying to think what answers I get. I get the answers where they say, well, because this particular faith, the Christian faith, it answers these particular questions. I'm like, well, that's arbitrary. Like, who's to say that those are the questions that need to be answered? Like, you're still special pleading, even in your answer to my question of how you're not special pleading.
Hmm.
And I never really get a good answer for that. But I'm gonna read the super chat. This is
Yeah.
from Charles Payette, 4.99. Thank you for the super chat. Says
Thank you.
Derek, how fast did it take for Myth Vision to go from to go hmm, I think it's go from 100K to over 200K subscribers, I guess he's talking about. And how fast can we get Brady there? If there was a magic formula for that, they would bottle it
Uh,
and sell it.
I'll tell
Um,
you, it took me a long time to get like 80,000 subs, several
mm,
years, right? But I started off slow and then I started pumping out more material. I think as I learned more and as I continued to do more of these higher quality in-person interviews, I
mhm,
got more and more subscribers and followers and things like that. When I really catapulted is when I took my editing to a different level and started doing
mm.
documentaries and producing pieces of art, so to speak, that people
Yeah,
can just tune in and like kind of almost shut their brain off, but you can't quite shut your brain off if you're
right.
really going to absorb it.
Yeah.
But I could imagine people at night, they light up a doobie and they're like hitting play on Myth Vision and sitting there going, "Oh, snap, this is deep." Because I'm going deep. I'm literally
Yeah.
taking some of the deeper,
Yep.
crazier, hardcore mythologies and things and showing at least comparison, if not genetic connection, then
Hmm.
similarities, which raise questions about genre that I think are important and necessary to consider. And I'm not the one who made that up. So when people talk about similarities or commonalities doesn't equal correlation or causation, correlation doesn't equal causation or something, and that
Hmm.
this is a they'll say this is a clear what do they call it? My brain shutting off. It's not consistent. You can't draw the connection just because it looks similar.
Mm.
And I get that. That could be the case. I'm speaking of experts in the field. I'm
Yeah.
talking about what do the ancient Near Eastern scholars, what do classicists say, and going in and drawing from those sources. And then when I see the material, I can't help but notice it. So
Mm.
I'm like, okay, well, why did they come to this? Because they're biased and they want to sin. No, it's freaking obvious to them, and it's obvious to me now.
Mm.
It was never obvious to me as a Christian.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
became obvious when I stopped putting one book on a pedestal and started reading all of this stuff as man-made materials.
Mm. Yeah. And let's not shortchange either. Like Derek said, it took a while, but then he was always invested in myth vision, but then when he started invested in the quality of the
Hmm.
presentation and the editing and all that, Derek's numbers are well deserved. And that's not to say that
Thank you.
Ichabod does not deserve, but we jump on here. I was just I don't know how this plays in your ears, Derek, but I was just sitting here before we got on a little while ago. For those who are subscribers, it's not that we like what we do on this channel on Tuesday nights. Me and my guy Jay Witt, he'll be back next week. We sit around and we kind of just shoot the shit. We'll watch videos. Me and Derek are going to watch a couple minutes of a video in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about it. But on Tuesday nights, we sit around, we watch videos, and we kind of just share our deconverted thoughts on the video that we just watched. On Sundays, me, Jay Witt, and my guy Albert Kim, who I saw in the chat a little while ago, we actually have a more put together presentation where we have a topic, we do a little bit of research, we sit around and we share our thoughts on that. So we do put in time. We don't just like we don't do nothing here. We put in time.
Right.
But when I watch what Derek does, yeah, his numbers are well
Can
deserved. And
can
maybe
I read you?
yeah.
I almost want to read you the Herodotus thing because I'm glad Michael Apple actually sent in that next super chat, by the way. Thank you, Michael, for Michael's over at my channel a lot as well.
Yep.
Um, so
Let me
I
read it real quick. Let me read it for those who can't find it. This is a $10 super chat from Michael
yeah.
Apple. Zalmoxis eventually came back. Took him 4 years, so he was a bit more punctual than Jesus. Fun conversation, but really, y'all just want to sin.
Right, right. I'm so glad that Michael realizes the fact, the
Mm,
ultimate fact that we're just pulling a magic trick that we really just want to sin and do whatever we want, right?
mm.
Um, I want to share my screen, but it says you don't have permissions,
Hold on,
but
I'll
I
give it
don't
to you.
want you to
Give
have
me.
to, you know
Nope.
how?
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay.
Uh, and then I told those, if you were on my Facebook, I said, hey, I have another treat for you guys. When I was on Apologia
That
today.
is amazing.
But I have
Bro,
another treat for you
congrats.
guys. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But I have another treat I'll tell you about in a minute. You should be able
Okay.
to share now.
Okay. I'm going to share this real quick here just to show people I would have preferred. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, I understand from the Greeks who live beside the Hellespont and Pontus that this Salmoxis was a man who was once a slave in Samos, his master being Pythagoras, son of Menarchus. Then, after being freed and gaining great wealth, he returned to his own country. Now, the Thracians were a poor and backward people. See how he's already talking like, but he's going to describe their myth.
Mm,
But this Salmoxis knew Ionian ways and a more advanced way of life than the Thracian. For he had consorted with Greeks, and moreover, with one of the greatest Greek teachers, Pythagoras.
mm,
And by the way, Pythagoras, bro, goes way down into
yeah.
the common era. His cult is legit competing with Platonic cults and all that kind of stuff. There's
Hmm.
really good stuff. Plato and Pythagoras, like constantly, like for centuries, the followers are fighting
Mm,
about what's the true philosophy or who's the better one.
mm,
Therefore, he made a hall. This is important. So he has a teacher of Pythagoras. Therefore, he made a hall where he entered and fed the leaders among his countrymen and taught them that neither he nor his guest nor any of their descendants would
mm.
ever die,
Wow.
but that they would go to a place where they would live forever and have all good things. Damn, if that's not heaven. I
Mm,
mean, really.
hmm.
While he was doing, as I have said, and teaching this doctrine, he was meanwhile making an underground chamber. When this was finished, he vanished from the sight of the Thracians and went down into the underground chamber where he lived for 3 years. That's why I said 3 years.
Hmm.
While the Thracians wished him back and mourned him for dead. Then
Mm,
in the 4th year, this is why Michael Apple's technically correct. I just point out he was underneath for 3 years. 4th year, he appeared to the Thracians, and thus they came to believe what Salmoxis had told them.
mm.
Such is the Greek story about him. And he goes on, I just
Wow.
Googled this, but if I'd had the book, he goes on to say, but I don't personally buy any of this. And
Mm.
he's telling you why he thinks it's not true, but I figure I just read that for you so that
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah. Great, great. Wow.
And that's 500 plus years before the gospel writers are even writing. And Herodotus was influential to any educated authors for centuries, even into the first century, common era with Greek. So
Yeah.
Homer, Herodotus, you needed to learn from these. Father of history was Herodotus. You needed to know this stuff if you're going to write educated works and stuff.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, it's so interesting once you start diving into this history. I thought I saw another super chat here real quick that's going to get me
Or
into our
did
next
you?
point. Yes. Another super chat from John Geyer. Hope I'm
John Gear.
saying
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
John
always just
Gear.
say Gear.
Great job with Paulogia, Brady. It got me to subscribe. Thank you for subscribing. Love the live stream with Derek. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I was a cartoon today. We were talking about Satan's Guide to the Bible, or Mike Winger's response to it. Um, so me and my guys, we did a response to Mike Winger's response. And the day after I put it out, actually, Paula Gia hit me up and said, "Hey, I don't want to steal you guys' thunder, but I was going to do a response to it. You want to hop on with me?" It's like, what would I like, try to stop me? So we did that. But here's what's interesting. I'm going to share my screen just so you guys see if you haven't seen it. This is me and Paula Gia here. Here goes the other other treat I have for you guys. Can I share? Let me know when you see my screen.
Not yet. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. It's almost here, like Jesus, but it never comes yet. Still waiting.
Still
You
waiting.
will.
What?
Yeah, Brady Goodwin. Oh, there it is. Finally.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoo, Jesus came. Hallelujah. He didn't tarry.
All right. So me and Paula G, we recorded this and everything about maybe a week or two ago. And then just yesterday, I got a notice from YouTube saying, "Hey, Paula G, I mentioned you," right? So I go and I click on the link and I say, "Yo, he's got me looking all diesel like Paul, and I'm cartooned out." Sidebar, this has nothing to do with what I'm going to share. On my first album, I was also a cartoon, and I've been waiting to kind of
Wow.
like juxtapose the Incredible Walk album I did that had me cartooned with this new cartoon that Paula did for me. But when I clicked on Paul's yesterday, I said, "Yo, this is crazy." Not just because I'm a cartoon, but because he has me wearing a black hoodie that says Ichabod. And I should share my screen to show you. As soon as I saw it, I bust out laughing. This is if I was a Christian, I would say this is how God moves, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I saw it, I bust out laughing because here goes the other treat that I have for you guys. Right when I saw that, what I was doing at that moment was, can I get to it? I don't even know how to get to it.
Is it in a browser?
Yeah, and my browser is hit
I
by
see it. I
I think
see Ichabod at the top. If that's it.
I
Is that
can't
you?
get to it because my is in the way. Now I can get to it. Um, it stopped sharing, didn't it?
Yes. Hey,
Okay, I
everybody,
have to go
hit
back to
that
share.
like button. Hit the like button because
Yes,
I'm gonna tell you a
yes.
secret. I've learned it over the years doing lives. When the
Hmm.
audience hits the like button on the stream, it makes YouTube. I'm not just making this up. I know for a fact. It makes YouTube go, "Hey, we need to get more people seeing this. More people are liking it. Let's give it out
Mm,
to more of the subscribers who already are subscribed to Ichabod."
right.
And that's why I'll put a poll like, "Have you liked the video yet?"
Mm,
Yes.
yeah, I've
And then
seen
I'll
that.
make my next one isn't like no. I don't want a negative answer. I'll be like, duh, or I'll say something like, oh, good reminder, I'm on it now. Because I want you to like the video and I
Yeah,
want you to like this one so we can get more
yep.
viewers in.
There you go. So I'm gonna share my screen again. Let me know when you see it.
Come, Lord Jesus.
So we now have Ichabod merch.
Oh, there it is.
And what's
Okay.
funny is, like I said, as soon as I saw Paula G's video go live yesterday, I clicked on it and saw the Ichabod shirt. I said, and I text Paul, I said, "Yo, there's no way you could have known that right at the moment that you sent me this, I was actually on Fourth Wall making black hoodie shirts that said Ichabod."
You know
And I
what this
said,
means.
exactly. This
Oh,
is this is the
hallelujah.
Most High saying you need to go and buy you an Ichabod shirt right now. So I'm gonna drop the link in the chat so you guys can go and support. But let me just walk you through some of these real quick. And sorry, Derek, I'm gonna use you as a model since I got you here. I'm gonna use you
All
to
right.
kind of help sell some hoodies.
Okay, okay. I'm here, brother. I'm here.
So we got the Great Escape t-shirt that says I escaped the cult. And for
Mm,
anybody who asks you, wait, you escaped the cult. What cult were you in? Well, you get to tell them Christianity was the cult. All
right.
right. So you got the Great Escape t-shirt. We got those in black and white. We also have one of my favorites here. There is a public political dude who goes around. I'm not going to say his name. He goes around saying facts don't care about your feelings. Well, we've got a hoodie and a t-shirt that says facts don't care about your faith.
Mm,
So you can rock this hoodie to let people know, hey, there's some facts that you need to know, and your faith is running counter to those facts. And facts don't care about your faith. I'll show you one more before I drop the link and you guys can go support. And we still have a video to watch. We got like 4 or 5 minutes of this video I want to watch, but
it's all good. I'm here.
we got the mug. We got the don't drink the Kool-Aid mug. So you can top that. Got the Ichabod logo. It says I escaped the cult. And then we got these sweatshirts and hoodies here that I like. We got the Jay Witt. Who is Jay Witt? Hoodies in black and white.
Mm.
So check this out. And I'm going to read what it says just so you guys understand for those who are wondering what's up with Jay Witt and why do you have a guy in a hood and all that kind of stuff. This sleeve says, who is Jay Witt? The other sleeve says, I am Jay Witt. Why? Well, because we all were. Every one of us who lived for a day, for a week, or a year, or a decade, feeling as though you had to hide the fact that you don't believe anymore. Because if you were honest about that, you would lose friends or lose family. You might lose finances or just the future hope of a normal life. So this is to help normalize unbelief. Who is Jay
Mm.
Witt? All of us were. So I'm going to drop the link. You guys can go and support and spark some conversations or at least make a statement with this fashion.
I
All right.
love it. I love hoodies too. So I'll probably end up getting me one, bro.
There you go. All right. How do I go back into the thing where I can drop the link for you guys? All right. Here is the link to the store. It's also in the bio if you go to the YouTube bio. But I just dropped the link to the store in the chat. All right. Did I see any more super chats? If not, we got a video we want to get to. And then this still is a call-in show. I'm going to put the number on the screen. So if you guys have a question for me or for Derek, we primarily want the calls to be people who are, as we say here, you're looking at the front door. You feel like, you know what? I don't believe this anymore. But you don't know how to get from where you are to where the deconverted are. People like Derek, people like myself, who ain't nobody going to tell me I was not in. You
I
can say
mean,
what
they
you want.
will, but you
Right.
know, yeah,
Right.
you already know.
Right.
It doesn't work for us. It just doesn't. We laugh about it.
Yeah.
Like we want to
Uh,
flex on them in a way. We kind of want to be like, bro, I was in
right.
so much harder than you ever were. Like you don't even know how hard I was in.
Right.
This is starting to sound sexual, by the way. But anyway.
um, but yeah, so we people who were in, but we got out, and you're wondering, like, man, can you get to the place where you're no longer in? We want the calls to be mainly for those folk, but we will take a few calls. Um, let me see what I want to do here. Um, I'll share the number for those who want to call in a second. But right now, there's a video somebody sent me. I'm always getting videos. People send me videos of miracles that took place. Um, they ask me, what do I think about this? Is this a miracle? Is that a miracle? Um, and I'm like, um, I'm sorry. Uh, I'm like, that I try to explain to them why I don't really think what they're sending me are miracles. Uh,
Mhm.
But this video somebody sent me, they said, hey, this is somebody who's talking about atheists, why people become atheists and why we can't afford to have people become atheists. And when I saw it, this was not sent to me by a Christian. It was sent to me by a non-Christian who got angry because he said, yo, look at the way this guy is painting atheism. And I just want you to know, Derek said this to me as well. You don't have to become an atheist just because you don't believe the Bible anymore.
Right.
Not being a Christian does not mean you have to be a non-theist. On this platform, me and Jay, we talk about this. When we X'd out the God of the Bible, it just was easy to X them all out by the same merit. On the same grounds, we ended up saying, oh, well, this same thing applies to them all. But you don't have to become an atheist. But this video that we're going to play just a few minutes of, this is a Christian who put this together. And they're basically, it's almost like fear mongering, trying to get people to like, this is why you don't want to become an atheist. So I'm going to play some of it. And then Derek, you can stop me anytime you have something you want to say. I'll stop it if I have something I want to say. And it'll either be a lot of convo here or a little convo here. But then after the convo, we're going to, I'll flash the number. Matter of fact, I'll put the number up while the video is playing. So anybody who wants to call in can get ready to call in.
Perfect. I'll follow your lead.
All right. Okay. I'm looking for super chats. I don't see any more, so I'm going to go ahead and start the video. Yeah, I don't see any, so I'm going to start the video. Okay. The video was called The Atheist Illusion. So maybe you've seen it. Even if not, we're going to play it here. We'll go back to sharing my screen. Let me know when you see it.
Waiting for it. Almost here. There it is.
Okay. And believe I'm sharing my sound. If you don't hear it, let me know and I'll start it over, but I think I'm sharing sound. So, and let me just let you know from the beginning, they start with this, this verse from Ezekiel. The reason why they start with this verse from Ezekiel is they're laying the groundwork because the first thing they want to jump into is a person who was an atheist who died or who committed suicide, actually. And so they're trying to let you know, hey, we don't take any pleasure in this, but look at where atheism leads. This guy committed suicide. That's sort of what they're doing here. And it's propaganda, if I can use Mike Winger's word of the day.
Why will ye die?
I was raised without religion. One side of the family long ago,
This is Anthony Bourdain, for those who may be familiar with him.
Catholic, I think. The other side, Jewish.
Sorry, that may have been confusing. The atheist who committed suicide is Anthony Bourdain. I was not saying it's Anthony Bourdain who put this video together, just in case that was unclear.
I've never been in a synagogue. I don't believe in a higher power. I'm instinctively hostile to any kind of devotion. Certainty is my enemy. You know, I'm all about doubt, questioning oneself and the nature of reality constantly.
Tears stream down Rose McGowan's face as she speaks out about the shocking suicide of her friend Anthony Bourdain. The 61-year-old host of CNN's Parts Unknown hanged himself just 3 days after designer Kate Spade took her life in the same manner.
The world would not be better off without you. Anthony, why?
From an atheist perspective, why not? Why shouldn't people kill themselves? Robin Williams told us in Dead Poet Society that we and all we do are nothing more than food for the worms, so we should seize the day. But what should we do when the day is no longer worth seizing? When instead of light, it only offers darkness? What should we do when friends and lovers disappoint? When career and fame can no longer fill the emptiness within us? What do we do when we can no longer busy ourselves in...
And let me just stop it here, as we like to do on this channel, and be mindful of what's going on. The first thing Derek said to me after he watched this video was he talked about the altar call music that's playing in the background. That's part of the propaganda. They're pulling on your heartstrings as they're talking about this is how these atheists live their lives. And when there was nothing else for them to live for, why shouldn't they I mean, yeah, it's sad. God took no pleasure in the death of the wicked. We don't take any pleasure in the death of the wicked. The loved ones of these people didn't take any pleasure. But why shouldn't they, if there's nothing else to live for, and they've got this music playing that sort of coax you into, taking what they're saying without a grain of salt. So just be
And just
mindful of that.
one
Yeah.
comment on this too is they're saying, why don't you die? There's no meaning, no purpose, right? Why don't you just kill yourself? And you can reverse that. You literally could just say, why would you want to be here? You can go straight to heaven. Just go ahead and die now. I mean,
Right.
or if you think that you're guilty and therefore you're not sure if you're going to heaven, at least kill all infants and, that are innocent, and then
Right.
let them go to heaven, unless you have
Right.
some extreme view that even innocence or reprobate or the
Yeah.
predestinarian view that makes
Yeah.
you think all this stuff. But yeah,
Great point. Great point.
enough to ignore our own overwhelming despair. Atheism can offer drugs and distractions, but no real purpose for going on.
The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is, at bottom, no design, no purpose, no evil, and no good. Nothing but blind, pitiless indifference.
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I saw you laugh, and I'm like, he says atheism can offer drugs and distractions. Why is that the domain of atheism? Like, who says that atheism is like, is that in the atheist storehouse, drugs and distractions?
I feel like to give them, if I'm properly defining what they think atheism means, not just lack, a belief in God, like we would technically say. I feel like they have this idea of a category of someone whose life is chaotic and broken, and they're off on the deep end, and they're out here kind of like just depressed, and they're hanging out with the wrong crowd, and they're doing drugs day in and day out. Like, no, I was a Christian who struggled with addiction and was in that kind of funk. And it was during my getting sober or clean, my last go around, that I deconverted and actually went away from drugs. So that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's helped me become more aware, balanced, and clean and sober. So we have a contradiction here. I get the point, though, if I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. The other thing is this, what Richard Dawkins said. If Richard's talking about the universe, period, he's not, with that kind of answer, I cannot imagine that he is thinking about the conscious being with relationships and things. I imagine he's speaking of actual, like the scientific facts based upon our universe and what we're dealing with. We humans are the ones who create the narrative and purpose and such in our experience. I imagine this goes for all creatures that have consciousness and life on Earth, that we have our own narratives. But this ultimate grand scheme idea keeps coming up when Christians are reacting to these kind of quotes or these sayings from these atheists. And it's like, okay, that's why I said to you yesterday when we were talking about what to talk about on this, is like, is a mother and her purpose as being a mother less significant and carries no purpose if there's not like a grand motherhood after you die? Like, do you need like a heavenly motherhood in order for your motherhood right now, being the mother of children, to mean anything? No. You have experience, and you're the way we are addressing the world. I could get how something like this could seem pessimistic, and how a philosophy of nihilism could be, drawn from something like this. But ultimately, we have meaning, and that doesn't change for either side. And I think that they're just trying to say atheism gives you no meaning and no purpose. And the fact is, for me, atheism is just a lack belief in God. I have filled my life with a different narrative. I believe in myself instead of Jesus anymore. That's a whole different psychological thing. That's a different thing. So
I always draw a distinction between ultimate meaning and intimate meaning. Like, I don't know what the cosmos is up to. I know what I'm up to. Like, I have intimate meaning, not ultimate meaning, and that's fine for me. Another thing that I thought about when he said atheism can offer drugs and distractions. Spoiler alert, because the more he talks, I'm going to come back to this point. Why isn't religion a distraction? Like, you say atheism can offer distractions. Who says that God is not the way that human beings distracted themselves from nihilism? Like, I'm going to come up with a story to give myself something ultimate, because intimate is not enough anymore. Intimate reason, intimate purpose is not enough anymore. Maybe I am a mother who lost a child. Maybe I am a husband who lost a spouse. So the intimate meaning is not enough. I need a distraction. I'm going to create an ultimate meaning.
Right.
That's a distraction.
Yeah, I think that like we talked about, there's several factors to this. I don't think it's one that may play a role in some people's minds. But I do think that naturally, as we talked about with the limb being cut off, you think it's still there, the phantom limb experience.
Yeah.
I imagine that the same goes for loved ones once they're gone. You might hear them, dream about them, think you heard them, whatever, or saw them or something, and you still think they're alive. So I could see how someone today or in antiquity through an experience like that would think they're still around and that they're going to see them at some point in the hereafter, whatever your worldview particularly is. I could see someone doing that. But yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
That's why it's not, everyone isn't always going to fit the same model, because not everyone has the same traumas and experiences and how they overcome these things.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm playing this, like I said, is because not to say, hey, if you don't believe anymore, if you find yourself doubting, the next step for you is atheism. That's not what we're saying. But the reason why some people won't come out of the closet or won't even entertain the idea of atheism is because they've been frightened that if I do become an atheist, this is what's left for me. I'm going to go the way of Anthony Bourdain. I'm going to go the way of Robin Williams. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not, no.
I'll play a little bit more.
No good. Nothing but blind, pitiless indifference.
We are natural organisms in a natural environment, and that's all we are, and that's good enough for me. I don't feel bad knowing that. I don't feel like my life is missing something because there's not some transcendent order to it all. There is no purpose of life. In the cosmic picture, total cosmic picture, we don't matter any more than broccoli matters.
The good news.
Pause that real quick.
Yes. Yeah.
This is important to notice what he said there very carefully. I know Dan Barker personally. I mean, I've emailed Richard Dawkins and talked about doing a show with him to talk about atheism and stuff, but I know Dan Barker personally, and I know he has plenty of meaning and purpose. I know he does, and he's a family man and everything. Then why did he just say that? He's talking about cosmic grand purpose, and it's also what he said is humbling, because, man, we can put ourselves, look at how, I'm going to put it like this as a prediction. We're already doing this, but it's like, I imagine eventually we're going to have a different diet than eating animals. At some point, it's going to happen. Humans are going to be forced to do that, or animals will eventually go extinct, or something's going to happen where we go backwards, because I'm imagining that we're going to realize how we're treating animals as if we're above and better and greater than them. And it's like, oh, wow, evolution, these things start coming in, and you start realizing, why did we think we were the sinner? Because we, not animals, were made in the image of God. We are special. And it's so humbling to realize, actually, no, level out the playing field. Now, that doesn't mean we need to keep playing, because I have different opinions than some of the guys who have statements in here, but go ahead.
No, that's great. That's great stuff. I just had a thought and I lost it that quick.
I apologize.
No. That what you said, it took me in a different direction than what I was thinking. And I'm like, man, several thoughts. I'm going to let it go because it could take us a while. But that's great stuff. Great stuff.
News of atheism, the gospel of atheism, is essentially nothing. That nothing happens after death. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to fear. When after you die, you are returned to that nothingness that you were before you were born.
When logic fails them, atheists often turn to mockery.
If God does not exist, what then is the purpose of life?
Well, I can only answer for myself. What cheers me up? I suppose mainly gloating over the misfortunes of other people. I guess that has to be, I think, mainly crowing over the miseries of others.
Christopher Hitchens is, of course, talking tongue-in-cheek here.
Yeah, I'm wondering, okay, that's an odd thing to say, but if he meant that, I disagree with him.
Right.
Like, I don't. In fact, my entire life is to try and help people. I want to help encourage people to do better.
Yeah.
And So
Yeah.
I think he is joking. His point is he's saying the opposite. I just love
Right.
seeing people be miserable. No, I
Right,
think he's
right.
saying the opposite. And yet this guy's lifting this quote. Anyway.
Yeah. He's going to say more that will let you know he must be joking. But the Christian, like you said, would not even give him the benefit of the doubt that he could be speaking tongue in cheek or being sarcastic here.
It doesn't always work, but it never completely fails. And then there's irony. There's irony.
Well, you know what's interesting too, what they're doing here? They're showing clips of him at different stages.
I noticed
as his cancer progressed.
Yep. Making him look worse and worse as
Yes,
he's degenerating as a human.
This is now, isn't this
it's manipulation?
propaganda?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's manipulation. Yeah.
Wow.
And which is the gin in the Campari, the cream in the coffee. Sex can have diminishing returns, but it's amazing.
He's being funny. He's joking.
Right.
No, that's pretty much it. And then it's a clear run to the grave.
So the point is, you don't want to be like this guy. Look at what happened to him.
Yeah.
As if Christians don't get cancer and don't decline. You know what I mean? Like, why show these images as if his worldview, if he meant those things, as if that has anything to do with his demise?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Do you realize that right this second, right now, somewhere around the world, some guy is getting ready to kill himself? Isn't that great? Isn't that great? That's probably the most interesting thing you can do with your life. End it.
Carlin could joke about suicide because he said we are nothing more than a collection of atoms, beings with no soul, no past, and no future. Biochemical organisms really only worthy of contempt. He said in his book Brain Droppings, I have more sympathy for an injured or dead animal than I do for an injured or dead human being, because human beings participate and cooperate in their own undoing. Animals are completely innocent. There are no innocent human beings. Here's an anecdote from the writer Patricia Highsmith. Not so long ago, I said to a friend of mine, if I saw a kitten and a little human baby sitting on the curb starving, I would feed the kitten first if nobody was looking. My friend said I would feed the kitten first if somebody was looking. I would too, Patricia. Atheists alternate between seeing humans as meaningless and godlike. The God of the Bible.
Okay. I just want, that what's interesting is, like you said, the screen grabs that they're taking of these statements. Of course, they're fuller context to all these statements. And at the same time, you got to recognize that, one, all people who unbelieve, all non-theists, all atheists, don't think alike. But I guess the common strand that they're trying to show here is these are people who've come to devalue life. These are people who've come to see if we're not made in God's image, then all we are X. I don't even buy into the all we are X. Whatever the X that we are, these X's and Y's, these chromosomes have arranged themselves in pretty impressive ways to the point that you're not just a bag of atoms, you're not just a bag of chromosomes, you're Derek. I'm Brady. You know what I mean? Like the meaning that you have, the meaning that we have to each other, these statements that these comedians, first of all, these comedians or these scholars that they're making, these are not blanket statements about here's what I think of humanity. These are statements that people are making when they're trying to compare. If you need to be made in the image of God, I didn't think I'd talk about this, but in Alabama, I think it was Alabama today, where there was a case where a worker in a fertility clinic dropped a tray of fertilized embryos. And the court, I think it was the Supreme Court in Alabama, they made a decision saying this person who dropped this tray of embryo could actually be charged with murder, because the court said, because this is the court, this is a secular body, said because people are made in the image of God, then no matter how young these people are, if they're just fertilized embryos and you destroyed them, you're actually committing murder.
Right.
And so now what's about to happen in Alabama is they're saying well, then this is about to shut down the whole fertilization industry in Alabama because we can't afford to have any destroyed embryo have us guilty of murder. But now that's an ethical situation that you can get involved in and try to figure out like who's right, who's wrong in terms of should embryos be destroyed or what happens. But the reason for doing this, the reason the court said this is because we're made in the image of God. And because we're made in the image of God, now when you do this to these embryos, you're guilty of murder.
Right.
Like that's the thing that I'm sitting here saying, maybe it's not the best way, but it is sort of a counter argument. If you want to elevate us to this being made in the image of God, the other flip side of that coin is like, no, we're not. Like we are what we are. Like we are these things that for whatever reason, we don't know the ins and outs of it all, came to be into what we are now. But this isn't the image of God. This is, rather than us being the smaller version of something grand, we may just be the grander version of something small. These small atoms and cells and genes that formed into, what am I saying? I'm saying all that to say this alternative worldview to the view that's been pressed on us for centuries, that we're made in the image of God, and this is why we have value, and this is why we can't, you shouldn't kill yourself and you shouldn't kill other people and all that. If those aren't the reasons why you're going to not murder, you're going to not commit suicide, you're going to not, you do have to find other reasons, but those other reasons need not be spiritual ones. So I don't know. I'm thinking on the spot here in light of that statement, but your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a humbling thing to realize that God is made in the image of man and not the other way around.
Yeah.
And we are the ones who, in a sense, I'm not saying we completely create our own experiences or what they would call destiny and whatnot, but in a sense, yes, we help form and shape that world in which we live and how we perceive all this. Ultimately, too, I disagree with what if George Carlin does mean what this guy lifted it to say in these texts. I have a bias toward humans and humanity over animals. I'm not saying I wouldn't take care of animals. They act like you can't shoot. You have to choose one or the other. It's one of those guns to your head and you have to pick, and therefore you pick. I'd probably pick the human. That's my bias. But at the end of the day, I think this is all propagandistically put together, as Mike Winger would put it, to try and manipulate the audience through the emotions and through the fact that atheists just have nothing, that they have no purpose. They have nothing to look forward to in this world. And therefore, why listen to them on morality and all these things? And then now, you know what? Now that we've sold you with 5 minutes of bullshit, are you ready to hear about our archaic Iron Age?
And that's what's about to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you ready to hear about this message of bullshit? I'm going to share with you something that is going to really.
So hold on. Let's play. Let's let him get there, and then we can end it by talking about he did all that shitting on what atheists or unbelievers think to get to this point. Let's let him get there. He's going to get there real quick, and then we can wrap it up there.
The Bible presents a radically different perspective to both.
I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him. For he is thy life and the length of thy days.
We are material beings, and as Carlin says, we participate in our own undoing. But we also have souls. God created Adam from the dust of the ground.
All right, we don't need too much more of that.
We are all beings. In the name of Jesus, we all realize. Yeah, you could see the.
Yeah. But this is what Derek was just saying. So you spend 5 minutes stealing these little sound bites and making it seem like the atheist worldview is bleak and must necessarily lead to suicide and all that. And once you get people off their square of, well, damn, I don't want to live that way. What do you do?
I don't want that lifestyle.
Right?
Yeah.
So you take them to this Iron Age book and you start giving them these ideas of we all have souls. Like what's a soul? Like,
yeah. We all have souls.
Where's the soul? Like, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, go back to the quote, pull the quote up just to, oh, never mind. You already
just stop sharing.
Yeah. What does it say in the quote? Read the quote out loud that he has in that video real quick. I want to show you something that I caught that's interesting.
From the Deuteronomy passage he was reading?
Yeah, from the Deuteronomy passage. Yeah.
Okay. It says, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death. This is Deuteronomy 30, 19 and 20. I set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life and the length of thy days.
I just want to pause for 1 second and just see the irony with the reading of this text, which is talking from an author to Israelites, their seed. There's a continuation all throughout Deuteronomy and the laws about the Israelite seed not mingling with the other seeds. Look how quickly a Christian who wants you to then somehow find value in what he's trying to present to you is going to someone else's literature in antiquity, who he himself probably thinks he is the true Israelite of God, even though he's genetically not probably one at all. And he is the replacement of what an Israelite is, and that his seed is the one that's supposed to be this blessing and cursing, totally devoid of its original context and just ripping it out. We could do this with any book we want. I can create an interesting worldview that's amazing, just pulling it from any book that was written to other people for a totally different time and had nothing to do with me, and make it about us and try to find good things. But the other part I'd like to add is I can go get you 10 verses where God is destroying his own people, the ones he doesn't take pleasure in destroying. And then when some of those prophets speak, they say, God, why have you led us astray? So you know the famous prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Lead us. They're asking Christ, or Christians who pray this Our Father, speaking to the Father. But Jesus is saying, say this prayer to the Father in heaven, lead us not into temptation. Well, who the hell's the one who leads us to where we can fall? God. So when we get screwed up over and over in our own narrative in this book we call the Bible, over and over, Israel falls, and God's doing all the, well, I must crush you and I must kill you, and using rape language to describe Israel, rape and destruction, and I will expose your body parts to the nations and things like that.
Wow.
Well, do you guys want that worldview? No. So let's ignore those ugly passages or find ways to minimize them and make them somehow compatible with modern morality. And some of our morality doesn't match with their morality, but even their morality, which is often not humanistic in many ways, can't even compromise with some of the things it says there. So they want to try and make it something else. Hyperbole, allegory, the same thing that the ancient Greeks did when Zeus raped Semele or other people, other mortal women. They went, he didn't actually rape anybody. That's actually an allegory. So, God could never do that. Zeus would never do that. Anyway, I can go on like an endless tirade against the issues of bringing in your archaic God. I don't understand.
Yeah. I'll put the meeting ID and number to call in the chat. I just did it again for those who are looking to call in. I'm sorry, it showed up all jumbled up together, but the number to call, 305-224-1968. You see it there. And then the meeting ID, you'll need that if you're going to call. So look in the chat. Ichabod just dropped that in the chat for you guys. Yeah, I just wanted to play that because, like I said, I know there are tons of people. I get emails from people all the time. I get emails from husbands, from wives, from fathers, from pastors, from people who they've already deconverted in their heart. But they can't come out to the people around them. Right. And one of the reasons is because atheism or just unbelief, people assume you're going to go become the worst version of yourself. You're going to, you're going to just have this bleak life. And I just wanted to dispel some of that. Like, no, Derek, you deconverted how many years ago?
I think maybe 2.5, not too long ago.
Wow. What you've done in 2 years is astounding. astounding. But the ground didn't open up and swallow Derek. I began my deconversion process started in 2014. I denied it for 3 years until 2017. 2018 is when I really started giving ear to my doubt. I didn't come out to the world until 2021, 2022, I think it was. In 2022, I came out to the world. And I'm so glad that I did. But man, imagine living, and maybe some of you already are doing this, you're living years of your life in the closet. Part of the reason why I do this on Tuesday nights is because you don't have to come out of the closet. You don't have to tell people that you don't believe. But I want you to know there's a life outside of the church. There's a life outside of even the faith community. And I'm not promising you rainbows and sunshine, but most of the people you see in the chat, most of those people in there greeting each other and laughing it up and having a good time, these are people who had to make that tough decision. Or maybe some of them are still anonymous. Maybe they don't, their friends and family don't know. But there is life after faith. So if there's anybody who's looking to call, this is kind of going to be the last call for alcohol here, because we try to keep people no more than like an hour and a half on Tuesday. But if there's anybody who says, man, I would love to just call and hear from somebody who's walked this walk, the numbers are in the chat. I'm going to drop them again in the chat in case they're hard to find. Let me separate this a little bit because last time it showed up jumbled up together.
Good to see some people in the chat. Shannon's in the chat.
Yo, Shannon
awesome.
Q. Shannon is awesome. So yeah, in the meantime, if you have a super chat you want to throw in, make sure you get that in. Let me look for any to see if I've missed any. And like I said, the merch is live. Go check out the store. The link for the store is in the bio for this page on YouTube. I also dropped it in the chat. I'll drop it again before I sign off. Don't see any super chats there. So get your super chats in or get your call in if you're going to call. I do want to once again say, Derek, thank you to you just for being a brother, for being an ear, for being a, who's this? Hey, Paul.
This
Paul
is our
super
this
chat.
is our favorite Paul in the house.
Not the apostle. Shannon says you need to wrench somebody soon before I act up.
Yeah, you know what I noticed the feature about super chats too is you can like their super chats now.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. I did not. Now I'm going to start hearting and liking or whatever people's super chats if I like them.
But wait, what does this mean? You need to wrench somebody soon.
You need to at least have a few people.
Oh,
who are
admin.
mods,
Admin.
like
Okay.
mods.
Yeah. You're right about that. I don't know the all the lingo, so I'm slow. Yes, we do need to have admins. I see a call coming in. Let me jump to the call and let me just warn, this is not saying that anybody has any bad intentions. We are not here to debate. This is not a debate show. There are call-in shows where you can call and debate theists. This is not that. So if you're calling to debate, I'm going to be as nice as I can, but the call is not going to last long. But we'll see who's on the line. We'll see how it goes. Let's take the call. Hey, how you doing? You're on with Derek and Brady. Tell us who you are, where you're calling from.
This is paying homage. I'm calling from Paradise Valley, Arizona.
Okay. What's up? What's on your mind?
It's crazy, man, because like my whole family like stopped talking to me because I became an atheist. And this summer I was in a near fatal car accident and I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden all my family members are calling me again. But it's just hilarious. Like I just like trying to like navigate around a whole Christian family that basically turned their back on me. How did you deal with that? Or did you have to deal with that?
Well, let me ask a question or two. How long ago did you become an atheist?
2020.
2020, okay. And let me ask you this. What kind of atheist were you? Like, were you very vocal? Were you very confrontational? How did you present it?
What's that guy's name that hosts that show called The Line? Jimmy. Jimmy always said, when you become an atheist, shut up for 4 years. So I took his advice.
Okay.
And,
So you were not the angry
told my
vocal
family.
atheist.
Yeah, I was angry, but I kept it to myself.
Okay.
And I just told my family members. I told my family members I wasn't a believer no more, which is probably the wrong thing to do. Just come out and just say it.
Well, let's slow walk this, because there are other people who are in the same predicament. If you can, why did you tell your family members?
Because I felt free. I felt relieved. And I kind of wanted them to feel the same way, but I didn't know how to articulate it the correct way.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You say that you felt free, because I'm not going to read into your mind and like know your version of beliefs, your particular, I imagine, Christianity. But when I was taught about hell. I was taught about punishment. I was taught about eternal conscious torment, and also just the philosophy in there of hating the flesh. There's this like sense in which you hate, like, why do I lust? Come to find out, like, this bad thing that you naturally do. And it's like, whoa, what? Like, there's so many self-hating ideas that were incorporated into the belief, but yet I'm a child of God. Oh, but all my hard work and righteousness is filthy rags. Hallelujah. Like, there were so many reasons to like, to be like, this is so much better now that I don't have this overshadowing idea. So I'm curious to know if that is the kind of version of Christianity your family comes from too. So they're angry, but they're also scared. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it comes from, I think it comes from like having a long line of Christian family members. Not only that, slavery, you know, being a black person and a non-believer is like taboo to the 10th power. And so, and like when I was a child, I remember when I was 3 years old, my mom was reading me the Bible, and my mom was reading me the Adam and Eve story. And when she got to the part about the serpent talking, I asked my mom, "What is a serpent?" And she said, "Son, it's like a snake." And I said, "Mom, snakes don't talk. That's make believe." My mother hit me so hard and busted my lip. Like, she hit me so hard, I was on the bed and I fell on the floor. And then she like, "You don't want to die and go to hell," and this, that, and the third. And I think about that every moment of my life. And but the craziest thing, when I came out to my daughter and I told her, "Daughter, I'm an atheist," and my daughter looked at me and said, "Dad, I always been an atheist. I never believe any of that crap."
Wow. And she has all the purpose and meaning in her life, right? You're not like having to go every other week and take her to the hospital because she's trying to kill herself. Now, I'm not trying to make light of this, because I know people do suffer with mental health, but like that is so ridiculous. I mean, there are real people struggling, and I feel bad for every one of them, especially people who are just born with these kind of things, whether they're theist, agnostic. Beliefs, in my opinion, like, don't matter when it comes to suffering. Humans suffer, animals suffer, things like that. So that video that I know glitched out a little because the internet's not the greatest, but like Brady showed, it's like, that's just BS. There's no reason to buy anything that person was saying.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When your family did turn up after your accident and start, showing that, they do still love you, did you accept it?
I accepted it, but with a grain of salt. Like, because the lady I was in an accident with, she was actually a pastor's wife. She died instantly. She flew out the car and died instantly. I woke up 2 weeks later from a coma. I had a shattered femur bone, and the accident caused me to have an appendicitis attack. And when I woke up and everything, her family members actually came to the hospital and were like, cussing me out, like, "Fuck you, go to hell, this, that, the third." And I'm thinking to myself, this is a pastor's wife and this is her family, because she died in the hospital, in the same hospital that I survived in. So we were both in the same hospital. She died, I lived. So her family like came and chewed me out, and like the police had to come and escort her family out of the hospital. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I can't think of another way to say it, but thank God I'm atheist. Like,
that's a t-shirt idea right there.
Thank God I'm atheist.
I'm atheist.
I always say it all the time. Christians are nothing but backsliding atheists. That's all they are.
Wow.
Hey, well, thanks for calling. I mean, I'm to put my since you asked the question, I
Yeah.
deconverted publicly to my family the week before I put up my deconversion video on Facebook 2 years ago. And it was
Oh, okay.
smooth sailing for about a year and a half. It wasn't until last Thanksgiving when the entire family went around, before we eat, everybody says what they're thankful for. And all of my aunts, gave a little mini sermon talking about what they're thankful for. They're thankful for the cross, and they're thankful for the, how it goes. And I had exactly. I had a fight inside me. Like, do I say I'm thankful to be free from religion, or do I just let this one ride? And it was after that moment that I began to have conversations with people in my family about, and I'd never thought, because I have a cousin who's Muslim, and she does not come to our Easter dinners or whatever because she just feels awkward being there as a Muslim. It was the first time that I had to decide, man, can I? Because one of my relatives said to me, when they realized how bothered I was by everybody going around in that circle giving these mini sermons, they said, well, our family, that's why we get together. And I said, well, that's not why I get together. I get together because I love you all. I don't get together to thank Jesus. It was the first time that I had to decide, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to continue to gather with my family if that's why we get together? And of course I still do, but I really haven't had any family members not love me, not show their love for me.
Right.
Because they know that I didn't come to this decision overnight. So I know that can't be easy. And then if they turn up to show you that they love you and you get into this accident, I can understand why you would, be a little hesitant to accept it because of how easy they took it away, or how seemingly easy they took it away. But I guess, yeah.
Are they better? Is your relationship with them better now?
Yeah, we talk on the phone, but I'm about to move to Texas next month, and I'm going to my dad's side of the family. Now, my dad's side of the family, they have no clue. They're Catholic. They're black Catholics. They have no clue that I'm atheist. Only my mom's side knows. So this is going to be an interesting, endeavor. But I'm just going to keep it to myself. I have a really close relationship with them because my father passed when I was 8. So I'm going to keep it to myself when I get there. So that's going to be another thing for me to cross, but it's okay. They're mostly older people. So, I'm just going to keep it to myself. I might even go to church with them a few times.
I think we all three know what it's like to not understand why someone wouldn't believe in God. I think all of us can relate to remembering, holy crap, like it was odd. If someone said they didn't believe, I'd be like, what's wrong with them? What in the world is wrong with this guy? And then somehow the tables turned and we put on a new pair of glasses, and it's like, all we want is to be treated the same love, the same respect. And my mom, when I finally came out, for me, Brady, it was like, and the caller, for me, my mom would look at me and she'd purposely want to come over and say Christian anecdotes and things like that on purpose. But I remember one time she asked me, why don't you believe? And I knew that my answer should not be for me, right? I knew not to go, Jesus, this, the Bible says that. No. I said, let me tell you a story. And I took it off of the Bible and off of Jesus, and I went straight to Homer and told the story of Odysseus, because my mom is married to a Green Beret, a warrior. My dad was like combat warrior, the whole 9, special forces. So I equated this King Odysseus who was going to combat against Troy, and the whole story is wild. And I painted the story, and my mom started crying. After about 15 minutes of being into the story, she started crying. It was powerful. And I said, do you feel that? You felt how powerful that was? You know how you felt Jesus? Well, the Greeks felt this. And she's just like, whoa. And I was like, so I had to paint it in a different picture. And then over time, she just avoids it altogether and says, I pray for you and I love you, son. I want you to know that. And I said, Mom, even though I'm an atheist, one day when you're gone, I'll irrationally be talking to you, even though you're probably not hearing me at all. And that's fine, because I'm a human. I'm a risen ape on this planet. I am just making my own way, and I might talk to you when you're long gone, Mom, because I love you that much. And, it may be irrational, But
Wow.
you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
why do we
Yeah.
pretend that we're
Hey,
perfect? We shouldn't
yeah,
pretend we're
yeah.
perfect.
That's great.
hey, you know what? I almost died in Iraq. I'm a 20-year retired Army veteran,
Thank you for your service.
and you're welcome. And it's so crazy that you brought that up because I almost died in Iraq. We were riding a convoy through downtown Baghdad, and my door got shot 14 times. And at that time, you couldn't tell me that wasn't Jesus that blocked them bullets. But I'm thinking to myself now that I'm an atheist, I'm like, that was just level 6 armored glass. That's all it was. It didn't have nothing to do with God.
That's a good one. Oh, we can all look back. I guarantee you we have testimony after testimony that we could look back now and rationalize and maybe explain it away and be like, oh, you know what? I remember taking ecstasy back in the day when ecstasy first came out. And it was like, well, it was around the time that ecstasy was popular. These were in pill forms. And I took ecstasy and I was talking about Moses because I'd been reading it the last week at school. And I went into a hallucination, a drug-induced one. And I saw things that were evil, like demonic looking. Okay. Heard laughs, all that. Went inside. My wife was pregnant and I put my hand around her stomach and I felt better. And I told her, woke her up, and I felt better and I went to sleep. And the next few days, it was God telling me, it was the devil, it was a spiritual warfare, it was everything. And then like years later, I look back, I went like, bro, I was tripping balls. I was on drugs. I mean, like, yeah.
Jesus is in acid tabs. I see.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, bro, thanks for
All
the
right,
call.
man.
We got a few more. Hey, but feel free to call back or like I said, this is a nice community here. The chats are here. If you need encouragement, check me out on Facebook. There's a community there. Hopefully you do have, you said 2020, so it's 4 years. Have you found community of others who can identify with that experience of deconverting?
I'm gonna try to find it when I move to Texas.
Okay.
I'm leaving Arizona, so
Okay.
yeah, it's getting too expensive here, and the fishing sucks. So I'm out of here. All right, man.
Hey, much love. Thanks for the call, bro.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
I got 2 super chats I need to read.
Three.
Digital Hammurabi, $1.99 super chat. Just wanted to say that these are 2 atheists with no moral grounding. Atheist and moral are capitalized. Suppressing. We're both suppressing. So thank you, Digital Hammurabi. Much love. Much love for those who don't know. That is Dr. Joshua Bowen or could be Josh's wife.
Yeah, it's Josh.
It's Josh.
He has this weird thing where he just follows me around and like I thought I saw a person looking in my window the other night. It was Josh. Anyway.
Love you, Josh.
Love you.
Got a super chat from David. Thanks to both of you guys. Derek, I'm going to be relying a lot on your channel's content as a source for some creative work later this year.
Amazing. Thank you, David, for super chatting, my friend here, and giving a compliment. Josh has no role in that scholarship that I have on my channel, in case you're I'm just kidding. No, seriously, thank you.
You said 3 super chats. I'm looking for the other one. I saw
Shannon has a very good one, and it's on the caller's point. She says he doesn't owe anyone his deconversion story, and then heart. And she's right. I mean, you don't need to. Like, you don't need to go out there and put yourself through hell with your parents. If it's not like hey, I need to know, you need to confess at the front door. I don't think, obviously there's something that you need to break at that point. It's not like your family's interrogating you about your beliefs. If it comes up naturally, it comes up.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't press it. It can create a lot of stress for the person who's in it. But there is a sense of relief when you do, come to the people you love and you're able to say, hey, but there is a sense in which they cannot understand.
Yeah.
They just can't. I know, because I didn't understand.
That's a hard road to try to walk, because who doesn't want to? It's one thing to live authentically and be your true self. It's another thing to share that with the people in your life.
Right.
And I've always made this comparison between deconverting. It's funny that we use the language of coming out, because people who are homosexual have I think there's a crossover there of people who feel like this is who I am, but I can't share this with the people that mean the most to me.
Right. Right.
There's one side where you just go and live who you are, but there's another side of you that wants to share that with people.
Right.
And so if you are a deconverted person, it's like, I encourage you, yes, be who you are. If you don't believe, enjoy your Sundays off. Enjoy having your own mind back. Enjoy not having to run your thoughts through the grid of, I've got to take this thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Enjoy being human.
Mm.
And if you can enjoy being human with the people around you, I do encourage that. But like Shannon said, you don't owe it to anybody.
Nope.
But I understand the desire to want to be real and to want to. I'm a different type of person. I spent 30 years as an evangelist. So I feel like I owe people
Yeah.
a reason for why I've deconverted. I feel like
I
I
do
owe
too.
people. Yeah.
Let me be very transparent here. You might relate to this, okay? And some people watching might relate. I was that annoying nutter. I mean, I was an absolute crazy for Jesus freak kind of guy. And I would preach to my own family about how they need to take more seriously this. And I mean, I probably really did cause some kind of psychological, trauma or damage in my preaching to them endlessly. That's why I felt it was necessary for me, not everybody. I don't think everybody needs to, but for me, I felt it was necessary to apologize to them. And I did. And I said, look, I'm sorry. Look, if I was a normal everyday, I'm just Christian, but I go do my life and I don't think about what Paul said about, that which I don't want to do, I do, and obsessing over the life to come and the thorn in my side and all that insanity that I literally actually believed and tried to imitate. I don't think I would go out of my way to go, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not because I don't think the system's not true. I'm sorry for harassing y'all and making your life hell. More than anything, my wife, she dealt with it worse than anyone, bro.
Wow.
She is the rock. Like, I'm talking about dude, one day we're going to have to get her on and you're going to have to hear how crazy
I would love to. Yeah.
I
would love
was.
to. Yeah. Now, does she have we could talk about this later, but does she have a deconversion story too?
Dude, she's been the most level-headed, just kind of kept things the same in the way that she believes and feels.
Okay.
She thought there was a higher power. I think now she's not sure. She's more agnostic.
Okay. Wow.
But she does think that there's things beyond. You know how the atheist was painting the picture, like no purpose, no, everything is kind of like bland, there's nothing. She does think that other things are more important than us and that they may be, influencing us in some way. I don't want to say what the things are. I mean, she just acts like she thinks something greater and she hopes there's something after this, she says. But I'm like, what about God, Yahweh, Jesus, Trinity? She's like, men wrote the Bible. I don't give a shit.
Right.
Leave me out of it. Like, I love and I love you. I think there might be something out there. I don't know. There couldn't be nothing out there. It does scare her. For her, in her mind, she's afraid of nothingness. She's afraid that when it ends, it ends. For her. For me, I'm like, finally, all the crap I put myself through, it's finally time to rest, and that's it. That's how I think about it. So.
Yeah. Got a $2 super chat from Shannon, says, I also ignore what Paul says.
She's not talking about Apostle Paul. She's talking about both Pauls.
We got 2 more calls. I want to take at least just one of them. You got time for one more call?
Sure, I'm here.
See if we can just do this last call. Sorry, I know there are 2 calls, but there were 3. Somebody hung up. So we're going to take one more call, and then we're going to call it because I want to keep people for too much longer here.
Okay.
If you do want to get a super chat in, get it in. We'll take this one more call, and then that'll be it for tonight. So you are on with Derek and Brady. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
How's it going? Do I have to say my name? I'd rather not.
You don't have to say your name. Nope.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm calling from the United States. You had mentioned earlier, I've been listening to the whole show, good show, and you mentioned earlier about wanting to talk to people who were Christians who were kind of like teetering in and out a little bit.
Yep.
Still looking for that? Y'all still taking calls
Yes.
like that?
Yes. So you are a Christian. How long have you been a Christian?
25 years. I am went to seminary, have a master's degree in theology. I'm a pastor for 20 years, and
wow,
have you know.
Are you currently
really
pastoring?
good weeks? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I get why you don't want your name out there.
Yes.
yeah. I really, I'm not sure why I'm calling, just to be able to, talk a little bit. I've called into some of the hotlines that are like helpful for people struggling with faith. I've called, and talked to apologists. I've talked to, like not just like not on like call-in shows, but like actually like direct one-on-one calls with the doubts people and all that. Some weeks I do fine and everything's great, and other weeks I'm like preaching and I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world do I believe any of this? Like it sounds so silly. It sounds so ridiculous. What am I talking about here? And how can I in good conscience talk about this stuff and tell people they're going to, fly up through the air and they're going to come back from the dead and it's just so silly. It's like, oh my gosh. But I don't know. I don't have any.
Can I ask you this?
Really,
are the doubts new? Were they occasioned by something, or have they always been there?
No, I've had like doubts worsening and worsening for probably a solid 10 or 15 years. Probably about maybe about 10 years or so after I got into the ministry, and it's just gotten worse and worse.
I'm sorry you're in this pickle.
Yeah.
And it can be very harmful, especially the kind of faith, the kind of denomination, especially depending on what you have to teach or how their doctrine is. I've known a lot of people who try to work in between, and of course there's Freedom from Religion Foundation. There's people who have options for guys like you and
the Clergy Project.
Right. At the end of the day, I'm not here to I'm sure you're aware of them. We're not here to proselytize these foundations as if there's something you need to do. I can give you one story of my own experience, which does not even come close to yours. But my wife's best friend overdosed and died, fentanyl. And I was the most religious guy in their lives. I was the guy that was going to be the pastor. I didn't get my master's. I got an associate's degree at a Bible college, was on my way into seminary. And my change of theology from more of a free will to more of a deterministic Calvinistic kind of theology, and then my continuous study, and then I also struggle with drug addiction, led me away from becoming pastor, because I was like, what am I getting myself into? And then the Calvary Chapel pastor ended up cheating on his wife and the whole congregation. It was like, I don't think I want to be leading the sheep in case my moral shortcomings occur or something happens. But I was invited by her parents, who loved me, the most Jesus freak of their life, to come and give the eulogy. And I thought it was just going to be, a moment in the whole funeral process where I come in and I say my piece about, she's at peace now. She's not suffering anymore. And she was a great friend and an amazing person. She's in a better place, pretty much, is what I wanted to go and do. No, it ended up being I was the pastor of the entire funeral, and I'm an atheist. And I'm sitting in front of this congregation. My wife put all the stuff together because I'm working full-time construction. And I'm gulping, freaking out, feeling like I'm going to pass out in front of this hundreds of people at this funeral. And I don't even believe this stuff that I'm saying. So I started saying stuff that I did believe, and that at a funeral. And I was like, she is okay. How do you know that? Because based on our theology, you would think she's a drug addict who's struggling. We've been taught she's a sinner. She's probably in hell because she wasn't following Christ, all that kind of, no. She's okay. She's in a better, I started kind of asserting these things, and the audience I could see wanted to hear that. They wanted to hear that. And the mother was looking at me like, raise my daughter from the dead, as if I was a holy man or something who could do that. But that was a really uncomfortable position. I can't imagine serving in that kind of position, having to do that week in and week out. What that kind of does to you, I imagine, is difficult.
Yeah, that feeling is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I get it. It is just the dissonance and trying to put it all together is tough. I think that maybe if I had kind of consistent doubts that just stayed for years and years, but it just comes and goes. long stretches where I'm like, this is nuts. This is ridiculous. And then, I don't know, I guess I just stopped thinking about it or just set it aside and going about life.
Can I ask you this?
So,
Can I ask you what keeps you? And what I mean is this. On the weeks that you say are good weeks, where you're not full of doubt and you're not questioning things, do you attribute it to, oh, see, God did show up and fortify my faith, or God did, or do you attribute it to you were able to do some kind of mental jujitsu to quiet the doubts? And like, what do you attribute you're being kept this long, 10, 15 years of doubts, but you're still there? Like, who gets the credit for that?
That's a good question. I don't really. I have a very, very strange take on the supernatural for being a pastor. I don't really believe. My practical beliefs are much more like deist, I think.
Okay.
And so I don't have these thoughts of like, well, God has done something supernatural to keep me in the faith. It's just like, I just kind of recognize that I just set it aside and just stop thinking about it and move on to something else, and like basically just occupy my mind with my work and with things that, and just kind of put a stake in the ground and say, okay, I can't come to terms with this. I'm just going to have to come back to it. And also, I mean, my whole life would be destroyed. I mentioned, at some point I mentioned just about 2 months ago, I mentioned to my wife that I was having these kind of problems, and she flat out was like terrified and said that she would divorce me.
Wow.
She was
really?
I would not be able to stay with you. Yeah.
I heard that from many pastors.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry,
I can't say I blame her. We met in Bible school, and she's a devout Christian, and I put myself in her position. I'm like, I understand, She wants to be in the ministry. She's a pastor's wife, and she didn't marry an atheist.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really, really crazy. It's really insane. So
I got a $2 super chat from Chris. Says, link the caller to the Clergy Project. Are you familiar with the Clergy Project?
I am. I'm not sure enough in my unbelief, I think, to qualify to get over there. I think they kind of, I started to have a little bit of a conversation with them, and I'm not set enough. I think you have to be ready to get out and needing help getting out in order to use the clergy. I've talked to the other group that's a little bit more for like doubters and skeptics. You mentioned the name of the group. I talked to them, and that helped quite a bit, but it's just kind of a back and forth.
Yeah.
The type of thing for me that once I make a decision, my whole life is just completely upended. So it's really difficult to take that leap of faith.
Are you familiar with people like with Peter Enns and his podcast?
I know that name.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I'm not real familiar with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've only read one book from Peter Enns, and I've only heard 10 minutes of his podcast. But he is a former Westminster Theological Seminary professor. It was reading his book that actually caused me to begin to question things. And I started pulling that thread, and that's the reason why I'm not a believer today. But I don't even check in with him anymore. But I know enough to know this. He's got a version of ways to still see the Bible as useful. And in some way, I don't even know if it's believable as much as it is, here's how we can appropriate it.
Yeah. Negotiate with the text in a way
negotiating
that
with the text. That
especially if your whole life is going to be destroyed, man, and you really know that, not like I think that or I've been threatened, but you really do believe that this is going to destroy your life. Me nor Brady want that for you.
Right.
We do not. You don't need to label yourself anything for any risk. I must become this thing. No. And if you have your doubts, you have your doubts. You're gonna have them probably for the rest of your life, I imagine, especially if you're a thinker. But I like what you said there, Brady, because Peter Enns, I love listening to him.
Is it the Bible for normal people?
Is
that his? Yeah, the Bible for normal people.
Yeah, he's trying his best.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He's trying his best to negotiate with the ancient text in a way that is obviously saying when something's bad, something is bad. I mean, he's not going to defend genocide or various horrific ideas, but he's finding a way to
he accepts evolution. He talks about Paul being wrong about Adam and Eve being historical, but and he teaches at a I think he still teaches at Eastern Seminary here right outside of Philadelphia. But basically, I'm naming him because there are ways that people who either can't get out or who don't want to get out, but they know that their heart is not in the fundamentalism. There are ways to still stay within that space and not lose your family, not lose your livelihood, not even lose your sense of having a connection with something higher, and even in the biblical space. So, I mean, that just may be something that you want to investigate to see if it can be useful for you as you stake out where you're going to be with these good weeks and bad weeks. I appreciate
that.
Yeah.
I will definitely look into that, because I do see, practical good in, a group of people gathering together and getting practical help with their life and, fellowship and community and encouragement, exhortation, all those things. But it's just the belief that, God found my car keys, and God, I'm praying to God to get over this sickness, and people that are, it's just it's like the supernatural. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe there is a way to kind of stay with the practical and not emphasize the supernatural as much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Real quick, there was a pastor who, we were in touch for about a good 7 months. He called me up, said, "Hey man, I've been having doubts and got questions." And we talked for about 7 months. And at the end of that 7 months, he determined he was going to remain a believer. And then he kind of took a Hippocratic oath with me. He said, "But I've determined I'm going to do no harm. So I'm still going to preach. I'm still going to pastor. But I'm not going to talk about hell. I'm not going to do the things that are going to psychologically harm people in this life."
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's his own man. First of all, I can't make him do anything. But I said, "Hey, if that's where you land, fine." I just appealed to him on the grounds of humanism to not be doing harm with that which he knows he can't even believe, and it's not true. So I mean, that's just a route that some people end up taking there.
Can I ask you one question? If you don't mind, I'd like to ask one question, and if you're comfortable with it, is what kind of church is it? Like, what kind of denominational background is this church that you're a pastor of, if you don't mind me asking?
It's really difficult it's fundamentalist Baptist, independent Baptist, fundamentalist Baptist, typical kind of, the Bible is inerrant, and evolution is a lie,
answers in Genesis stuff.
Yeah, I actually got in a little bit of hot water recently, because somebody, one of the students found out that I had taught my kids that, well, maybe the flood was a local flood instead of a universal worldwide flood. And I got in some hot water with some of the kids in the youth group, because it kind of got around that I believed that. So
imagine what they would think of me, who thinks that the flood, if there was any, it was a Mesopotamian account from antiquity, and it had nothing to do with Noah. I mean, so imagine what they think. But I do want to make a comment. I asked because that's a tough one to find a way to gear your message as a pastor who's in that position. On how do you gear that message if you're really not believing in what you're saying? It would be like walking on water for me, especially with a fundamentalist church. But I've gone to these evangelical churches where they're teaching, like, it's almost a self-help kind of preaching. And in those, you can get away with stuff. You can use the myths that are stories, they're myths, and use them into a contemporary context of the husband and wife, of the children, of the everyday. How do you treat how do you interact with your coworkers? How do you treat your neighbors? How do you love each other? How do you love yourself? Take away the hate that we see going on in Paul and make it self-love. It might make you stick out in a weird way to some of your pastors, but if your message focused more on that, hey, I think we can all get behind that. I think those are all
Derek,
good.
Derek, when you talked about walking on water, I was sitting here, I was about to say, use the, and maybe you're not at the point, caller, where you can actually call it a myth yet, but I was going to say, use the myth to your advantage. You may have to carry this cross. The literary example of Jesus suffering and dying for the sins of the world, and you may have to do that for the sake of your family, for the sake of your, like, this is a cross that you may have to bear and take a sacrifice that, because of what would fall apart if you were to actually give into this doubt and come out. Use the myth to your advantage and be like the quote unquote the Lord. This is a chance for you to at least see Jesus as exemplar, if not savior.
And one comment is, be patient with your loved ones. Be patient with the wife as much as you can, because mine was patient with me. And I was wrong. It took me 10 years. Finally, we're driving to the beach one day, and I said, hey, honey, guess what? And she's like, what? And I said, the Bible was written by men. And she looked at me sideways, like not in a good way, like, I told you this a decade ago. And I'm like, I know. But I was like, I can actually prove it now, though, with arguments. And she's like, I don't want to argue with you. I told you that men wrote it and therefore it shouldn't be trusted. But she had her point. She just intuitively knew. I was spying that men moved by the Holy Spirit. That meant that this is inspired in Revelation. But be patient with her, and I hope that one day she comes out and starts having her own doubts, and then you and her can share in that, and eventually work your way as a family, as a unit, out of needing to be in this predicament you're in. So as Brady said, carry the cross right now, man. And then just try to burden that and be patient and show them love and all of that. So the best you can.
I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for calling, man. And feel free to call back anytime, or check me on Facebook. You can catch Derek. He's on Facebook posting stuff. And I have a little bit of a, something like a community on Facebook where people chat and comment and just encourage each other. And sometimes we argue with theists. But anytime you want to just tune in or chime in, you're definitely welcome.
Thanks very much. I appreciate the help.
Yeah. Be well.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, Derek, thank you for your time, man. Your time is valuable, but I appreciate you sticking around. This is 2 hours we've been on this call, man.
Man,
Appreciate
it's you, brother. You think I'm going to leave you hanging and half do this?
Hey, like I said, Joe, we got some new Ichabod merch. I just dropped the link in the chat. Go check out the t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, mug, support Ichabod. And anything else you want to share? Did I miss any super chats while we were on the call? Let me see. Scrolling up.
I don't think you did.
All right, good. What is this? Oh, I got that one. Okay. Hey, well, we're going to let folks go. Much love to you, Derek. I'm a fan. You're a brother, a friend. And yeah, appreciate you, man.
You as well, man. Your deconversion story hit home. We got more work to do, brother. We got more work to do. Yes. And I knew that if you did do this, I told you from the gate, didn't I? I told you, I said, bro, if you do this, you'd have a story. You have passion. People need that. And you see the utility in it. Let's be honest, as both people who host channels, this helps us. This is like therapy. It's therapeutic. For us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So thanks for everybody in the chat, all the positive comments, all the negative ones. You can shove those where the sun don't shine. No, I'm just kidding.
As Jay Witt likes to say, we welcome our friends and our enemies.
Right.
So yeah, much love, you guys. Have a great week, and we'll catch you back here next Tuesday. Much love. Peace.